I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. For over 3 decades, Cordell & Cordell has been on the front lines of family law. Divorce is more than just a legal process. It's a life-changing event that can impact your future, finances, and your relationship with your children. You've worked hard to build a life that you're proud of, and you deserve a legal partner who will work just as hard to protect it.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Twin Cities attorneys, a partner men can count on. CordellCordell.com.
Welcome to Meeting Malcolmus, a pavement podcast. Hey, it's JD, and welcome back for another week where we take a deep dive and look at the catalog of seminal indie rock band Pavement. And then we just sort of sit down, scratch our heads, and say, wow, that's a lot of good music. We're like 20 weeks into this thing. Something like that. And I don't know that there's been like what you'd call a dud. There are songs I don't like as much. But this has been a nice little education for me, and I hope you're enjoying it too. Let me know. JD at meetingmalcolmus.com. I've got a couple letters that have been sent to me. I got one handwritten note late last week or middle of last week. And it was really touching, and it was just somebody reaching out about my mom and wishing me well, and that's Pete, and thanks so much. And also for checking in about the tickets for the Barcelona show that look like they go on sale on Monday. So everybody on your marks. I continue to be confounded by this whole episode of mortality and what it means. I've been doing more drinking than I probably should. And then weed. So, doing weed. Hey man, pass the weed. Just trying to be out of my own head. Sometimes it's good to have a soundtrack for that, and thank fuck for the new Malcolmus and Spiral records. They've really helped me. But are you as excited as I am about Berman's new record, Purple Mountains? Man, I bought my tickets for that already. On the Twitter sphere, a couple people were talking about the Shattercones version of Mellow Jazz Docent, and if you want it, just ask. I'll check in with Shattercones and see if I can distribute it, but it's on Bandcamp, I'm pretty sure. But I can send you the MP3 clip that I have as well. Just reach out. So I got a note this week. Actually, it was last week. And it says, "Hey JD, I've been contemplating writing you to thank you for your podcast, but the last episode solidified this. I guess I'm not the type to communicate much, just to say thanks. But Pavement is special to me, and hearing what you're going through makes my heart go out to you. So sorry for your loss. I would bet that you are getting some nice support from your new friends as a result of this podcast, so perhaps the universe aligned, making it very timely for you to start this thing and connect with us at this time in your life. Anyway, if it wasn't clear, thank you. I've been a Pavement fan since the early 1990s and was lucky enough to have seen them a bunch of times, and the Jicks too. I'm not really big on nostalgia, but something about this music really moves my neurotransmitters in a way no drug likely could. And I have to say, I thought I heard all of Pavement's music, but some of those earliest tunes you played have been new to me, so thank you for that. In recent news, I too saw SM on the Groove Denied tour at the Lodge Room in Highland Park, LA. He opened with Spit on a Stranger. Partway through, he played Blackout. Later in the set, he jumped further back and did Frontwards, and closed with Fight This Generation. Again, serotonin all over the place. Of course, hearing the Groove Denied tunes live was fantastic. Some of the different versions, as we should expect, which is always fun. One other note I feel I should add, since this is a place to nerd out on Malcolmus, I was lucky enough to see him do a solo show back in 1998 at Long Beach Museum of Art. Just him, a guitar, some pre-recorded stuff, and a notebook. At this show, he did an early pre-album version of Spit on a Stranger. So hearing it the other night, way after Terror Twilight, solo with just him and guitar again, was a cool full circle experience in my mind. Also of note, at that 98 show, he did a very early version of Blue Arrangements, which popped up later on the Silver Jews album American Water. Anyway, I thought I'd share and show some support. I hope you continue the podcast if you're ready, and although I don't know you, I feel like I can say you will be okay, and I hope you meet Malcolmus. My condolences and appreciation. Mike. That's a very lovely letter and chock full of information. I don't even know where to start. I love the serotonin all over the place. That's a great note. It does feel like that's what this is like sometimes, doesn't it? I'm really glad that I was able to play some stuff that you didn't know too. That's pretty cool. We tend to be an obsessive lot, and being able to find something that maybe you haven't heard or maybe didn't click at the time you heard it is a neat way of connecting through the atmosphere. Thank you so much for listening and for taking the time to write. You guys just don't know what it means. I'm fine to stand on a tree stump and holler this podcast into the ether, but it's so nice when it bounces back and you hear the people are enjoying it. It's a tough feeling to duplicate. Though God help me, I've been trying. So there's that. Right now, speaking of making connections, I'm going to throw to an interview I did earlier today with a poet from Ireland, Ellen Dillon, about her book that has recently been published by Sad Press Poetry. It's called Sonnets to Malcolmus, and it's wonderful. And so is she. So let's give that a listen. Skype song, Skype song, Skype song. Okay. We have a very special guest today on the show, and I'd like to introduce her now. Please give a big warm welcome at your house while you're listening to this. Clap your hands, because that's strange, I think, maybe a little bit. But for Ellen Dillon. Hello, Ellen.
Hi, how are you, JD?
I'm all right. I might recut that introduction, but I might just leave it as it is.
Okay.
It's suitably absurd, you know?
It is for the project in hand, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, not necessarily for you, although you have a very interesting project that we're going to talk about a little bit later too. So you deal in the absurd a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
When it comes to your feeling about this band and their output.
Yeah. You could say that, yeah.
So where am I talking to you from right now?
Okay, so I am in the south of County Limerick in Ireland.
That's very cool.
So the southwest of Ireland, it's about halfway between Cork and Limerick.
What is it you think? I will tell you right now that from a numbers perspective, there is a great deal of listenership that comes from Ireland, the UK, mainland Europe. What is it about that region? And you can only speak to yours, I suppose, but like that they really latched on to this subject matter. And like, I didn't realize they would latch on to the podcast, but clearly they are pavement, obsessed people.
Fanatics. Yeah. And well, I think part of it is to do with like, Malcolmus in his interviews back in the day was always so positive about British things, and he was always such an Anglophile. Now, that doesn't necessarily always sell well in my particular neck of the woods, but like there was always a sense that he had an interest in European things, and then they played here such a lot in the 90s and that, and they were always a band that you'd be able to go and see, and love grows from that, like, and people grew up with those songs, and they're part of people's lives, and you don't just let that go because the band's on hiatus or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, from a region perspective, when I say this, when I say you guys, I mean regionally. You guys got the last show, and then you're getting 2 shows next year.
Yeah,
Lucky ducks.
Yeah, I know, and I can't really claim Spain or Portugal as home games as such, but they're close enough to home. Yeah, it's pretty astonishing. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Very exciting. Yeah,
I haven't been to Spain, so I'm hoping to. Apparently, can get tickets on the 17th of June.
On the 17th, is that as soon as they're coming out? Yeah, we're looking at Portugal, because we have never been there, so it's a perfect reason to go.
Of course, it is. So, talk to me a little bit about your history with the band, and maybe how you found them, and
where I brought them. Yeah. So I have been listening to Pavement for my entire adult life. I was an au pair in France when I was 17, and I was listening to the indie radio DJ at the time. His name was Bernard Lenoir, and he used to play all the cool music in English. And he was playing it was just before Crooked Rain came out, and he was playing some Pavement, and I hadn't heard them before, and I was completely blown away. So as soon as the record was released in France, I went and bought it and loved it from the opening guitar ? And bought everything that they released subsequently ever since, and have listened to them obsessively since 1994, which makes me sound really old.
Wow, that's 25 years, right?
It is 25 years. There's no massaging that away. Yeah, I've listening to a band through like growing up or not, and family stuff, and bonding with other people over B-sides that they loved best, and nerding out over the early EPs and stuff like that. It has always been like a staple part of my life for a quarter of a decade. That sounds scary.
Well, that's just it. It's a treasure trove of material. Like, even though there's only 5 LPs, there's so much
in the cracks and the crevices between the albums themselves. And like, even now you go back and you listen to things that you really had passed you by, like, or that you hadn't listened to properly when they came out, like this, and then even the songs themselves that backwards, forwards and inside out, they update with you, like, when you're listening to them and you've discovered other music in the meantime, or you've discovered other writers, or you're thinking about things differently now than you were then, it opens up a whole new way of listening to the songs as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. As your life changes, you know, I've had a couple of children. And,
same.
Things like that. And, you know, it's like, oh, this song means something a little differently.
Completely different, absolutely. And facets that open up to you that weren't available to you before. It's like a book that you keep coming back to, and every time you read it, because you're reading it from a different standpoint, it's a different book. And like, I find that, you know, Pavement's music does that too, more than most things. Yeah,
I completely agree. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to do this project. But let's talk a little bit about your project. This is fascinating that this came about, and I'll stop referring to it as this or that and let you properly introduce what your project is and maybe where it came from.
Yeah, okay. So it's a book called Sonnets to Malcolmus that's just been released this month through Sad Press. Based in Bristol in the UK. So Sad Press, exactly like it's spelled. They're on Twitter and online, etc. if anybody's interested in following up. So Sonnets to Malcolmus, it came about, like I write poetry, and I, for a long time, was a notoriously slow poet. It would take me forever to finish anything. And I was like, I felt like I really needed a structure or a project or kind of a constraint to make myself do something substantial. So a book that I was absolutely obsessed with in my early teens, before I even discovered Pavement, was Rilke's Sonnets to Orpheus. So it was written in German in like 1920. And it was a book of sonnets that he wrote in response to the death of a friend of his daughter's. And it had a lot about song and a lot about the figure of Orpheus, the musician, the lyre player, going into the underworld to rescue his beloved Eurydice. So I read those poems when I was, you know, a young teenager, and I can frankly say, like, understood virtually nothing of them. And I remember very little of them except for the thrill of sitting down with that book and just reading those lines, even though I didn't understand anything, which is, anyway. So I decided that I would rewrite or just take that framework as a structure and do something with it. So by framework, I made the things I took from Sonnets to Orpheus were the time constraints. So Rilke wrote it in like a burst of inspiration. Like he wrote 26 sonnets in 3 or 4 days, and then in the 2 weeks after that he wrote another 29 sonnets, so 55 in total, written in less than a month. Wow. So I was like, yeah, so in an absolute burst. So I was like, I'm going to do that. That seems like exactly the kind of, because I work really well to deadlines and really badly when there are no deadlines. So I was like, that's a really concrete, specific time deadline to set to myself. And then I was like, well, you know, what am I going to write these sonnets about? And I'm not good at, I don't really write about things. I write from and to other things. Like I'm always writing in response to another text or somebody else's poem or song lyrics or translations or stuff like that. I don't really sit down and go, right, I'm going to write a love poem about my husband, or I'm going to write about penguins. Like I write to something else. So I was like, okay, I have my structure, I have my time limits. Okay, where am I going to go with this? And then I was listening to Pavement, as I often am, and I was listening to Shoot the Singer, and I was singing along. And I am, you know, also very bad for getting the lyrics wrong, even to songs I've been listening to for 25 years. So I was singing along, and was singing the line, I named the book after you. And I was like, oh, bingo, there we go. So I was like, right. So I was like, okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Pavement, and I'm going to put Malcolmus into the Sonnets to Orpheus. And that's where the content side of it is going to come. So then what I did was I said, right, I started thinking about it, and then it gets so cheesy, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this out loud, and I never have done before, so this is a special moment. So I sat down and I was looking at his name, and I was like, oh, STEPHENMALKMUS, that's literally 14 letters, 14 lines for the sonnet. There you go. So then I figured that the first section, the first 26 sonnets would be, I would find a line from a Pavement song sorry, this is very hard to explain when I'm babbling.
I have the book in my hand, so I know where you're leading us.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So what I did was, for the first sonnet, I took the letter M, and I was like, I took a letter, and I was like, there has to be a Pavement song lyric in the first line as inspiration, okay, and then they're all going to be acrostics. So if you read it down the side, it says Malcolmus. And in the first section, they are kind of palindromes, because you've got the first stanza is Malcolmus, and then the second stanza is Malcolmus backwards. So I thought that was nice, the image of Orpheus going into the underworld, walking in and then walking back out again. So that was the pattern of that. And each poem has a seed line, which is a lyric from some song from Pavement. And
typically speaking, that lyric comes from you've paid homage to the title.
Yes, you can see in the yeah, exactly. If you're a proper Pavement nerd, you'd be like, okay, the title, rearrange it in some way, in some usually very cheesy way, and there you have it. Like,
oh, I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's very like elder boxing. You know,
elder boxing, yeah,
right, very cool.
Yeah, and seasonal infant for summer babes. So there's some play on all of them, and then it works through Pavement's albums quite chronologically. So it starts with Slanted and Enchanted, and then moves towards, we'll say, the Watery Domestic EP, and then goes on to Crooked Rain, and Wowie Zowie, and Brighten the Corners, and then on to Terror Twilight. And then I kind of realised that I got my numbers wrong a little bit, because Terror Twilight doesn't have as much of a tail as the other albums. So I ran out of source songs before I hit the 26. So the last two poems in the first section push into Malcolmus' solo work. So there's Vague Space and Cold Sun are the two for the last section there. So that's the first 26. So they were mostly Pavement with a little bit of solo Malcolmus and Jix at the end there. And then the second section had to be 29 sonnets. So the second section then spells out his full name, so Stephen Malcolmus. So for the Stephen stanzas, each of those takes a seed line from a song by Malcolmus from his from his Jix albums. And then the second stanzas, the Malcolmus stanzas, are made from reshuffling lines from the first half of the book. So if you're reading through it, you'll see that all of the second stanzas in the second section are kind of a mix and match of kind of their collage together.
That I did not notice. I did not notice that. You just got me.
Yeah, well, I spent an awful lot more time with these things than anybody else is going to. So, like, it's and there was kind of a pattern. So it was like the first poem in the in the second half starts with the second stanzas, made all my best life decisions in high school. So that's the first line from the first poem, and then the second line from comes from the second poem, and the third from the third poem, and so on. So they kind of follow each other on. So that's what I mean by randomness. Like, so I wasn't sitting down and writing them. I was like shuffling them like a deck of cards, and putting them in, in the order they came out in, rather than massaging them or trying to make them fit into any nice pattern or anything like that. So, so then But when it came to 26, I had to go back and shuffle things a little bit more, because there were 29 poems in the second section, but only 26 in the first section. And I didn't want to have the same, like if I'd gone right back to the start, I'd have ended up repeating the same 3 stanzas exactly word for word. So I shuffled up a little bit again. And the thing that I'm most pleased with in the whole thing, when everything was all, when all the bits were put back together, was that the very last line in the very last poem of the collection is, "Silent kid, don't lose your graceful tone." So so
Lovely.
that wasn't on purpose. Like I didn't like massage or twist them around to make that happen. But
it's just the way the randomness worked out.
Yeah, the cards fell that way. So I was really pleased with that. Yeah.
I love for part 1 and for part 2, you used quotes from the sonnets to Orpheus.
Yes,
Part 1, it's true singing is a different kind of breath. A breath around nothing, a sigh in a god, a wind. And that's... that's an ambulance or something.
Oh, ambulance. Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that. But I really like that. Like, that hooked me right off the bat. I was like, oh, this is... And I didn't know the background.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to put that in there too much. Like, yeah.
But you must be really pleased with the way... No, we're talking about things that other people can't see that we can, but you must be really pleased with the typesetting. Like, that must have been... like a bit of a journey, because it is typeset very uniquely, right?
It's it came out really beautiful, and that is Sam and Joe at Sad Press. They just did, like, I sent it off to them, and they sent back the proofs, and it just looked so lovely, and I was really, really pleased with how it came out.
That wasn't by design. That wasn't how you wrote. You structured it.
Yeah. With the spacing, yes, the spacing was yes. Yeah, so the spacing was another thing. Then there were like when I write, I get very, because as you can tell, I'm somebody who talks a lot, and I get kind of anxious that there are too many words. So one of the things that I started doing after I had done the 3 weeks of intense writing, and I had these 55 sonnets, was I started kind of punching holes in them, and knocking out, different categories of words here and there to see how that affected the texture, and to try and give them a little bit of air to breathe and stuff like that. So to put a bit of space in there. And I kind of thought of that as, a little bit like, giving space for a guitar solo or a really good counter melody line or something in a song, not singing all over it. Yeah. So
there is something sparse about Pavement in that way, right? Like, they don't ram it down our throats.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's always space there. And that's why those particular quotes from the sonnets to Orpheus were the ones that I picked, the ones about breath. So for the second section, it's feel how your breath still multiplies all space. The idea of, breathing into something and leaving a little bit of air into it, like that you're not singing all over it.
Right.
That was the idea behind that.
Well, Ellen, I really want to thank you for sharing this work with us through the book.
No, thanks. I'm delighted you wanted to talk about it. It's always lovely when people read something you've written.
Well, I want to remind people of where they can get it. They can go to sadpress.com and order it, or would they order it through the Sadpress Twitter? Or
Sad Press. If you go to Sad Press Poetry on Twitter, they have a link there to their website, and then their own website is sadpresspoetry.com, and if you click on our books, it's in there. And they also do this great thing, which they have published. I'm so happy to have the book with them, because they've published so many things that I really love, and they have a bundle deal, and if you sign up for that, it's £35, and they send you out the books that are out at the moment, and then their next 3 or 4 books, and that's a really great way for anybody who's into contemporary poetry to get their hands on some interesting new things that wouldn't necessarily cross your path otherwise.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's like a grab
club,
bag
like
of
almost
new
like a
things.
club or something. Like,
Yeah, exactly, like a record club back in the day, like
yeah,
where
exactly.
yeah, you signed up because you liked this one band, and then you ended up with all these other things as well.
That's right. And how many times did you find, like, you ordered something randomly or you got something randomly and you're like, whoa, this is now my new,
That's your favorite. Yeah, and that ends up being your favorite thing,
Yeah.
and the thing that you actually signed up for is like, oh yeah, that's okay too. But yeah, you find your special thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tougher now to find curated things, and if you find somebody you trust and you admire and you like, and in this case, that's how you feel with the publisher.
Yeah,
then,
exactly. You know that it will be good. Like, yeah.
That's right. Ellen,
Yeah.
it has been really wonderful talking to you today, and I appreciate you giving us your time and your art, and I hope a lot of people listening give this a chance and read away.
No, it was great to talk to you, JD, and thank you for giving me the chance to talk about my book and to listen to your podcast and dig deep with Pavement, because that's what I spend most of my time doing anyway.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. This week we are covering the last track on the Summer Babe 7-inch before we jump into Slanted next week, which I'm really excited about, even though we've already talked about Summer Babe. There's a lot of cover. There's a lot. So a lot to cover, not a lot of cover. But going back to this week, we are talking about the live act staple, the third track on the EP, Baptist, Blacktick. And did I just say it's a live staple? Because it really is. It's a song we've been playing live since the pre-Slanted tours. When I saw them in Central Park, they played it. I see they play it live fairly often. I probably could check that number out on setlist.fm, but not gonna wing it. Gonna wing it. So there's that. What is this song about? I don't know. It's an anthem, though. And although I, to some people's ears, shit on Mercy Snack last week by saying it didn't have a chorus, Baptist Blacktick doesn't have a chorus either. But the guitar in between the shout verses acts as an interlude or a chorus of sorts. This song to me is a real bridge between the original EP and later Pavement. And by later Pavement, I mean probably up to Crooked Rain or maybe even Wowie. But likely just Crooked Rain. It's an interesting song. It really owes a lot to the punk roots. You can hear the sneering in the vocal delivery. You can visualize the crowd pumping their fist in the air at the angst of it all. And yet, where's the angst coming from? I don't know. Is it that that lightning quick drum, like the snare roll? I don't know, but it's wonderful. That snare roll is wonderful. Again, listen to this song if you can and ISO the drums in your head, and you really hear what a great drummer Gary can be. But I love the whiny guitar, like the high pitched speed of it all. It's a really great vibe. Lyrically, I can't put my finger on it. I know this is a couple weeks now where I haven't really committed to lyrics. But I do think that this is more a exercise in the timbre and the cadence of that lyrical snare, that vocal snare, and filling that space with words that juxtapose those drums and fill that time in between those guitar licks. I don't know that it, necessarily means a whole lot. That's my take. What do you think? So with that firm stance, that hot take, that underqualified and uncool analysis of Baptist Blacktick, let's listen to the fucking song. This is Baptist Blacktick on Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast. Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast, is a weekly affair. You can listen, share, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about the show, go to www.meetingmalcolmus.com. I tweet and Instagram at Meeting Malcolmus. Stephen, are you listening?
I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. For over 3 decades, Cordell & Cordell has been on the front lines of family law. Divorce is more than just a legal process. It's a life-changing event that can impact your future, finances, and your relationship with your children. You've worked hard to build a life that you're proud of, and you deserve a legal partner who will work just as hard to protect it.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Twin Cities attorneys, a partner men can count on. CordellCordell.com.